Star Trek. 25 weird facts you didn't know. Star Trek, the original series, isn't just a sci-fi classic, it's packed with surprising secrets. From Captain Kirk's shocking death to behind-the-scenes stories, everything you think you know about the show is about to change. Ready to uncover some untold facts? Stick around until the end for a special secret.
Citizen, what is your name?
My name is James Tiberius Kirk.
Captain Pike preceded Captain Kirk. The unaired pilot, The Cage, which wouldn't be seen by the public until its 1986 home video release, offered a very different take on Star Trek. The episode featured a nearly entirely different cast, with only Mr. Spock, played by Leonard Nimoy, remaining from the original lineup that would go on to define the series. Jeffrey Hunter, known for his role in The Searchers, starred as Captain Christopher Pike, a character who finds himself kidnapped by telepathic aliens for psychological experiments, with a human woman playing a key role in their plot. Though the original pilot was solid, it lacked the warmth and diversity that would come to define Star Trek. The studio ultimately rejected it, reportedly because it was considered too cerebral and lacking in the action that was thought necessary to capture viewers. Undeterred, creator Gene Roddenberry pushed forward with plans for a second pilot. However, Jeffrey Hunter decided to step away from the series, leaving the door open for William Shatner's iconic portrayal of Captain Kirk. Looking back, NBC's rejection of The Cage turned out to be a blessing in disguise. The series was reworked and revamped into something much stronger, leading to the creation of the iconic Star Trek that we know and love today. Dr. McCoy's famous catchphrase, "The unexpected origins of I'm a doctor, not a..." Dr. McCoy's famous catchphrase, "I'm a doctor, not a..." became one of Star Trek's most beloved running gags. Whether protesting an unreasonable request or emphasizing his medical expertise, McCoy's exasperated retorts added humor and personality to the series. But this now classic line wasn't entirely original to Star Trek. Its roots trace back to the 1933 film The Kennel Murder Case, where a similar phrasing was used. While the series borrowed the idea, it was DeForest Kelley's delivery that truly made it legendary. His dry wit and exasperation turned a simple phrase into a defining character trait, one that fans still quote to this day.
Keep saying that. Are you a doctor, aren't you?
I am a doctor. When I peek, it's in the line of duty.
From Kirk to Spock, how Leonard Nimoy became Star Trek's unexpected heartthrob. William Shatner was originally cast as the handsome, charismatic Captain Kirk, with Star Trek designed to appeal to female viewers by making him the central attraction. But as the series unfolded, the true heartthrob emerged in an unexpected form, Spock. Despite his pointed ears and logical, stoic demeanor, Leonard Nimoy's portrayal of the Vulcan officer struck a deep chord with fans, particularly women. Spock's complex character, balancing emotion with reason, quickly became a fan favorite, and Nimoy found himself on the receiving end of a massive amount of fan mail, much of it from women expressing their admiration and affection. The sex symbol status that was initially intended for Shatner's Kirk ultimately belonged to Nimoy's Spock, and the chemistry between the two characters became one of Star Trek's most enduring legacies. Assignment: Earth, the Star Trek spin-off that never was. During Star Trek's second season, Gene Roddenberry took a creative gamble by co-writing Assignment: Earth, an episode meant to serve as a backdoor pilot for a potential spin-off. With the series constantly teetering on cancellation, this installment introduced Robert Lansing as the enigmatic Gary Seven and Terry Garr as his quick-witted assistant, Roberta Lincoln. While many guest stars embraced their brief Star Trek appearances, turning them into convention circuit goldmines, Garr had a very different experience. Years later, she distanced herself from the role, stating in an interview, "I did that years ago. and I mostly deny I ever did it, expressing relief that the spin-off never materialized. One possible reason for her disdain comes from Star Trek historian B.O. Trimble, who recalled an uncomfortable moment on set. According to Trimble, Roddenberry repeatedly insisted that Gar's skirt be shortened, going so far as to kneel in front of her and adjust it himself. This awkward and unprofessional encounter may have played a major role in Gar's lasting frustration with her time on Star Trek.
Maybe I just better call the police right now.
The Star Trek spin-off that never was, Harry Mudd's Lost Adventures. The charismatic rogue Harry Mudd became a fan favorite during Star Trek's original run, making 2 memorable appearances. However, he was meant to return for a 3rd episode, Deep Mud, but actor Roger C. Carmel's unavailability derailed those plans. Years later, in the early 1980s, Carmel revealed an intriguing piece of Star Trek history. At a farewell party for screenwriter Herb Solow, Gene Roddenberry confided that NBC had once approached him about developing a spin-off centered on Mudd, a space pirate and intergalactic con artist navigating his own misadventures. Unfortunately, the idea never materialized. Mudd's legacy could have extended even further. There were early discussions to bring him back in Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, and even an episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, but both plans ultimately fell through. Despite these missed opportunities, Harry Mudd remains one of Star Trek's most beloved scoundrels. The explosion that left Star Trek actors with lifelong hearing damage. During the filming of The Apple, one particular scene turned unexpectedly dangerous. In the episode, Spock hurls a rock that detonates upon impact, but the explosion was far more intense than anyone anticipated. The blast was so loud that the cast, still dressed in their Star Trek uniforms, had to be rushed to a doctor's office for evaluation. Years later, DeForest Kelley revealed that the incident left him with chronic tinnitus, a persistent ringing in his ears that never fully went away. Leonard Nimoy also suffered lingering effects, though his were less severe. For William Shatner, the damage was even worse. His existing hearing issues were exacerbated, leading to a significant worsening of his tinnitus. This on-set accident became one of Star Trek's most unfortunate behind-the-scenes mishaps, serving as a cautionary tale about the risks of practical effects in television production. Who's your all-time favorite Star Trek character? Captain Kirk, Spock, Jean-Luc Picard, Data. Please leave your answer in the comments below. The secret behind Star Trek's tight budget and iconic costumes. Star Trek was produced on an astonishingly tight budget, with each episode costing only $193,000, a far cry from the $3 million per episode price tag of modern one-hour dramas. To make ends meet, the studio took creative measures, including enlisting a non-union workshop to design and create the show's iconic costumes. This decision, which was likely in violation of union regulations, meant that the wardrobe had to be discreetly transported to the set to avoid attracting attention. Despite these financial constraints, Star Trek managed to create a universe that felt expansive and immersive, relying on ingenuity and resourcefulness to make the most of its limited budget. The show's creative team made every dollar count, and the result was a series that would go on to have an outsized cultural impact, far beyond its modest beginnings. What's your favorite Star Trek episode and why? Share your thoughts below. Captain Pike returned for 2 episodes and the Star Trek movie reboot. Captain Pike, who originally led Star Trek in the unaired pilot The Cage, made a memorable return in the series, first in the 2-part episode The Menagerie, and later in J.J. Abrams' 2009 movie reboot. In The Menagerie, the producers cleverly recycled footage from the original pilot to craft a new story. In this episode, an injured and disfigured Captain Pike is being taken back to the forbidden planet Talos IV by Spock. The reason behind their mission remains a mystery, and Spock takes control of the Enterprise, facing a court-martial as he refuses to explain his actions. This was a smart and cost-effective way to incorporate the original pilot's footage into the ongoing storyline while giving a new depth to Spock's character. Decades later, in Abrams' Star Trek reboot, the character of Captain Pike was resurrected once again, this time portrayed by Bruce Greenwood. This Pike was reimagined as a mentor to the young Kirk, guiding him through his first mission in space. This nod to the original series added a layer of continuity and reverence to the reboot, while keeping the legacy of Captain Pike alive for a new generation of Star Trek fans. Star Trek's original number 1 was a woman. In the original Star Trek pilot, titled The Cage, Gene Roddenberry's girlfriend and future wife, Majel Barrett, portrayed the first officer, known as Number 1. Although Barrett's character demonstrated leadership skills, including taking charge during a rescue mission when Captain Pike was captured, test audiences at the time found her to be too pushy and thought she was attempting to emulate male behavior, leading to her character being replaced by Spock in the series. This occurred before the women's liberation movement gained momentum in the US, and it was years before Star Trek saw its first female captain, Kathryn Janeway, in Star Trek Voyager, 1995 to 2001. Majel Barrett Roddenberry worked on every Star Trek series. Majel Barrett Roddenberry, often called the First Lady of Star Trek, was a key figure in the franchise's history, contributing her talents across multiple series and films. She first appeared as Nurse Christine Chapel in the original Star Trek series, portraying a character with unrequited love for Spock. Her work continued throughout the franchise, with notable roles in Star Trek, the animated series as Lieutenant Mress, and in Star Trek, The Next Generation as Lwaxana Troi, as well as providing the voice of the Enterprise computer. Barrett Roddenberry's influence extended beyond acting. She also served as executive producer for Earth, Final Conflict, and Andromeda after the death of her husband, Gene Roddenberry. Even after her passing in 2008, she continued to contribute to the Star Trek legacy, providing the iconic Starfleet computer voice for the 2009 movie Reboot. Star Trek's Spock has greenish skin, but it was originally meant to be red. Spock's iconic greenish skin was actually the result of an early color misstep. Initially, the character was supposed to have red skin, an idea in keeping with the Vulcan's alien nature. However, in the 1960s, and when most households were still watching television in black and white, red would not have been the best choice, as it would likely appear very dark on screen, possibly making him harder to distinguish from the background. As a result, Spock's red skin was swapped for the more visually distinctive green hue that we know today. Interestingly, one of the early episodes did feature Spock with a noticeably green tint due to a mishap with the color palette. This accidental shift may have led to the permanent greenish tone that became part of his defining look. It's worth noting that Star Trek's original series was largely watched on black and white TVs, and the opportunity to later see the series in color during syndicated reruns undoubtedly attracted new viewers and gave longtime fans a fresh way to experience the episodes. This added layer of excitement and nostalgia for the classic series helped cement its place in pop culture. Did you know any of these behind-the-scenes secrets before? Which one surprised you the most? A lot of Star Trek technology became reality. Many of the futuristic technologies depicted in Star Trek have become a reality in the decades since the show's original run. The communicators, which seemed like an innovative piece of equipment at the time, now resemble modern-day smartphones. The earpieces worn by characters like Uhura and Spock are similar to today's Bluetooth devices. The universal translator concept, which allowed seamless communication across different languages, mirrors today's advancements in voice recognition software and real-time translation tools. Additionally, the tricorder, a multi-purpose medical and scientific device, has inspired modern portable labs like NASA's LOCADPTS, a portable biological laboratory. Meanwhile, the interactive video screens used for communication and information sharing on the show prefigured today's video conferencing technology. Even the Enterprise's audio recording technology, which initially used cassette tapes, foreshadowed the digital storage we now use with floppy disks, which are now obsolete. There have been more than 125 Star Trek-related video games. Since 1971, the Star Trek universe has inspired the creation of more than 125 video games. The journey began with a simple text-based game written in BASIC and continued through a variety of gaming platforms, from early arcade games to home systems like the Commodore 64 and Atari 5200. As technology evolved, so did the games, with titles appearing on modern consoles like the PS3 and Xbox 360. Some of these games, like the Kobayashi Alternative, Klingon Honor Guard, and Delta Vega, Meltdown on the Ice Planet, stand out for their colorful and imaginative gameplay. With such a vast number of titles, collecting or playing every Star Trek video game is a formidable challenge, requiring access to a wide range of vintage and modern platforms. Yet, with the right setup, it's possible for dedicated fans to experience them all. Star Trek's Vulcan salute is actually a Hebrew blessing. Leonard Nimoy's iconic Vulcan salute, paired with the phrase "live long and prosper," was not originally an invention for Star Trek, but rather something deeply rooted in Nimoy's Jewish heritage. As a child, Nimoy attended an Orthodox Jewish synagogue service where he witnessed a special ritual known as duchening, in which priests raise their hands in a gesture similar to the Vulcan salute while chanting. This moment left a lasting impression on him, so when it came time to create the Vulcan salute for the Star Trek episode Amok Time, he drew on his childhood memory. The hand gesture itself represents the Hebrew letter Shin, which is associated with Shaddai, a name for God. It is a symbolic blessing that, unknowingly to many, has been passed on through generations. So, when viewers see Spock's Vulcan salute, they're witnessing a powerful and ancient Jewish blessing. Star Trek's Kirk-Spock connection continued in real life. The deep connection between Captain Kirk and Mr. Spock on Star Trek mirrored the real-life friendship between William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. On screen, Spock's stoic character was often in need of Kirk's human warmth. And similarly, off-screen, Nimoy played a pivotal role in Shatner's personal life. In a 2016 interview with The Aquarian, Shatner revealed that he had never experienced a close, intimate friendship before his bond with Leonard. He described their relationship as uniquely profound, not just a casual, let's grab a beer type of friendship, but one where they could confide deeply in each other. Shatner's emotional reflections about their bond were later captured in the book Leonard, My 50-Year Friendship with a Remarkable Man, highlighting a rare and meaningful connection in both their professional and personal lives. In a way, Star Trek was the original Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Star Trek can be seen as the predecessor to shows like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Angel, particularly in terms of its ability to resonate deeply with a specific, often passionate audience, despite not being a massive ratings hit. While the original Star Trek series had limited representation of strong, action-oriented women, it still reached a demographic that advertisers valued. When the series was canceled after just 3 seasons, NBC executives reportedly noted that although it wasn't a top performer in terms of viewership, it was still reaching the audience they wanted. This resonates with the way Buffy and similar shows later cultivated dedicated fan bases, despite not dominating the mainstream. Star Trek's success in off-network syndication and the rise of Star Trek conventions in the early 1970s further solidified its long-lasting cultural impact. Today, a show like Star Trek would likely have continued for far longer given the current entertainment landscape. One of Bones's signature Star Trek lines was taken from a 1933 movie. One of Dr. Leonard Bones McCoy's most iconic lines,
I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer. I'm a doctor, not an engineer.
was actually inspired by a 1933 film, The Kennel Murder Case. In that movie, Dr. Doremus, portrayed by William Powell, uses variations of the line, including,
I'm a doctor, not a magician. I'm a doctor, not a detective.
These phrases, which reflect Bones's constant exasperation at being asked to perform tasks outside his medical expertise, became a staple of the character's humor. McCoy, of course, made the line his own, offering countless variations throughout the Star Trek series and films, embedding it firmly in pop culture. Star Trek has a connection to Stanley Kubrick. You might be surprised to learn that Star Trek has a unique connection to Stanley Kubrick's iconic film 2001, A Space Odyssey. Before Gary Lockwood went on to play an astronaut in Kubrick's space epic, he starred in the Star Trek episode Where No Man Has Gone Before, which aired as the third episode of the first season. In this episode, Lockwood's character gains godlike powers that send him spiraling into madness. His newfound abilities make him a serious threat, not only to the Enterprise crew, but to the entire galaxy. It's interesting to see how both of these roles explore the dangers of unchecked power in space. Kirk had a dark past before Star Trek. Before William Shatner became Captain Kirk, the fearless leader of the USS Enterprise, he had already established himself in some much darker, more intense roles. Far removed from the heroic persona of the Starfleet captain, Shatner's early career included a series of gritty and suspenseful film and television projects that showed his range. In Roger Corman's lesser-known but powerful film, The Intruder, Shatner played a racist provocateur who stirs up trouble in a small southern town, pushing things to a violent and tragic extreme. It's a role that shows his ability to dive into more disturbing and complex characters, long before he donned the iconic Starfleet uniform. Shatner's versatility extended to the supernatural with Incubus, a unique film shot entirely in the Esperanto language. In this chilling tale, he portrayed a man who is loved by a succubus, only to find himself caught in a dangerous web of vengeance when her sister gets involved. The role showcased his talent for blending the otherworldly with emotional depth. One of his most famous television moments came when he starred in the Twilight Zone episode Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. In it, Shatner plays a man terrified by the sight of a gremlin on the wing of his plane. His portrayal of escalating panic in such a tense, confined setting remains one of the most memorable moments in Twilight Zone history. Shatner also left his mark on horror television with his appearance in thrillers The Grim Reaper. In this chilling episode, he plays a man who warns his aunt about a dark curse tied to a portrait of a grim figure, foreshadowing violent deaths that followed previous owners. The episode remains one of the best examples of horror on TV, with Shatner bringing a palpable sense of dread to the role. Star Trek strived for ethnic and gender diversity, but the women still had to look sexy. Star Trek made significant strides in promoting ethnic and gender diversity, showcasing women in positions of power and importance. However, it's true that the portrayal of women on the original series often leaned into traditional Hollywood ideals of sex appeal. Female characters like Lieutenant Uhura, Yeoman Rand, and Nurse Chapel wore mini dresses, and close-ups of these actresses were often softened to highlight their beauty, a common cinematic technique of the time. While many female characters had important roles, some, like Lieutenant Marla MacGyver's in Space Seed, were still portrayed as more dependent or submissive in relationships with men. Over time, later Star Trek series offered more complex and empowered female characters, reflecting a more enlightened era. Many of the effects in the original Star Trek series were upgraded for HD broadcast and release in 2006. When Star Trek the original series was remastered for HD broadcast and release in 2006, Paramount took a bold step in upgrading many of the show's visual effects, particularly the sequences involving the Enterprise in flight and space backgrounds. This decision, while controversial at first, with some fans and even Leonard Nimoy expressing concerns, aimed to modernize the visuals for a new generation of viewers while still preserving the iconic look of the show. Visual effects producer Michael Okuda, who had worked on the franchise since Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, ensured that the CGI enhancements blended seamlessly with the original footage, maintaining the show's charm while enhancing the overall viewing experience. Mark Lenard was a Romulan, a Klingon, and a Vulcan on Star Trek. Mark Lenard holds the distinction of being the first actor in Star Trek history to portray 3 distinct alien species. His versatile acting range saw him playing a Romulan, a Klingon, and a Vulcan. In the Season 1 episode, Balance of Terror, Lenard portrayed the Romulan captain leading an invasion into Federation space. Later, in Star Trek, the motion picture, he played a Klingon commander facing an ominous cloud that destroys anything in its path. However, Lenard is most famously known for his portrayal of Sarek, Spock's father, a role he played across multiple Star Trek series and films, including the iconic episode Journey to Babel, the animated series episode Yesteryear, and Star Trek films 3, 4, and 6. Malcolm McDowell received death threats after Captain Kirk on screen. Malcolm McDowell, known for his iconic role as Alex DeLarge in A Clockwork Orange, faced unexpected backlash from Star Trek fans after portraying Dr. Tolian Soren, the character responsible for killing Captain Kirk in Star Trek Generations. The film, which bridged the original Star Trek series with the next generation, sparked intense anger among devoted Trekkies. McDowell revealed in a 2010 interview that he had received threats for his role, though he didn't take them seriously. The studio, however, did, assigning 2 detectives to accompany him during his press tour in New York. McDowell humorously recalled how the detectives followed him around, even though there was no sign of any real threat. He joked, "I feel embarrassed that nobody's tried to kill me, for Christ's sake. I feel like I'm letting the detectives down." Star Trek's episodes are not in chronological order. Star Trek's episodic timeline is famously not in chronological order, a fact that became apparent when fans noticed inconsistencies with the star dates. This was due to the episodes being broadcast out of production order, which left some confusion. In an attempt to explain this anomaly, Gene Roddenberry offered a humorous, yet seemingly logical explanation. He claimed that the star dates weren't based on Earth's time system, but were influenced by the vessel's speed, space warp capability, and position within the galaxy. Essentially, time aboard the Enterprise would vary depending on these factors, making star dates relative to the ship's location. Roddenberry admitted that he wasn't entirely sure of the logic behind his explanation, but was grateful it made sense to enough people at the time. William Shatner pissed off Star Trek fans when he hosted Saturday Night Live. William Shatner caused quite a stir among Star Trek fans when he hosted Saturday Night Live in 1986. During a sketch where he portrayed himself attending a Star Trek convention, Shatner, while answering fans' geeky questions, told the audience to get a life. His comments, "You turned an enjoyable little job that I did as a lark for a few years into a colossal waste of time," were met with backlash from fans who felt offended by his dismissal of their passion. although he later reflected on his relationship with the fandom and even wrote a book and produced a documentary titled Get a Life in 1999 and 2011. Respectively, it marked a memorable moment where Shatner unintentionally alienated the very fan base that had helped propel Star Trek's success. The Brady Bunch. 20 weird facts you didn't know. Think the Brady Bunch is just a simple family story? Think again. Behind the fun and valuable lessons, there are untold stories about its production and unexpected moments. From a mere statistic to one of TV's most iconic families, the Brady Bunch holds many fascinating secrets. Let's dive into the things you've never known. Robert Reed's struggles with Mike Brady's role. From the moment the Brady Bunch premiered, Robert Reed was unhappy with his role as Mike Brady. As a trained Shakespearean actor, he felt that acting in a sitcom with its often silly humor was beneath his abilities. His dissatisfaction with the role led to tension between him and the producers, who found Reed difficult to work with both on and off the set. In his quest to bring more realism to the show, Reed frequently clashed with Sherwood Schwartz, the program's creator and executive producer. Reed often presented Schwartz with handwritten notes, pointing out why certain scenes didn't make sense, but Schwartz mostly ignored his suggestions. In a 1983 interview, Reed reflected on the constant battles, saying, "We fought over the scripts, always over the scripts. Sherwood had done Gilligan's Island with just gag lines. That would have been what the Brady Bunch would have been if I hadn't protested." Cindy's real-life lisp on the Brady Bunch. Susan Olsen, known for playing Cindy Brady, had a real-life lisp that became part of her character's charm. In the episode A Fistful of Reasons, Cindy's lisp is central to a storyline where Buddy Hinton, the neighborhood bully, mocks her with the familiar taunt,
Baby talk. It's a wonder you can walk.
Stop that, Buddy Hinton.
Off-screen, Olsen worked with a speech therapist throughout her childhood and into her teenage years, and by the time she turned 19, she underwent surgery to correct her lazy S pronunciation. Despite the challenge, Olsen's lisp only added to Cindy's lovable persona on the show. Florence Henderson wasn't the first Mrs. Brady. Before Florence Henderson was cast as Carol Brady, another actress, Joyce Bulifant, was very close to landing the role. In fact, Bulifant was so integral to the casting process that she was used in most of the screen tests alongside the child actors during their auditions. Interestingly, one of the reasons Eve Plum was cast as Jan Brady was due to her physical resemblance to Bulifant. Initially, Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of the Brady Bunch, envisioned Carol Brady as a quirky comedic mom in the vein of Lucille Ball's character in Yours, Mine, and Ours. However, the casting dynamic shifted when Ann B. Davis, an Emmy Award-winning actress, signed on to play the housekeeper Alice. Davis brought the necessary wackiness to the show, which created a need for a more grounded and sensible mother figure to balance out the chaos. That's when Florence Henderson, a Texas-born musical theater star, was brought in to play Carol Brady, and the rest, as they say, is history. Meanwhile, Joyce Bulifant went on to a successful career of her own, famously playing Murray's wife on The Mary Tyler Moore Show. The Florence Henderson and Barry Williams rumor. One of the most persistent rumors that followed Florence Henderson throughout her life was the speculation about a romantic relationship between her and Barry Williams, who played her on-screen son, Greg Brady. At the time, Williams was just 16 years old, while Henderson was 36. In his 1992 memoir, Growing Up Brady, Williams opened up about having a crush on Henderson. He explained, "When those little things called hormones start kicking in, you get excited by even inanimate objects. It wasn't that I sought to bed her. I just wanted to spend time with her." Despite the rumors, the two always maintained that their relationship was purely professional, and Henderson remained an iconic figure in the hearts of her fans. Who do you think had the most memorable storyline on The Brady Bunch? Share your thoughts below. Florence Henderson's surreal encounter with Star Trek. When Florence Henderson arrived late for her screen test, she ran into a bit of a problem. There was no one available to help her with makeup. In a panic, she wandered into a nearby makeup room, only to realize she had accidentally entered the world of Star Trek, which was filming in the same studio space as the Brady Bunch. To her surprise, she found herself seated between two iconic stars, William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy. In interviews, Henderson recalled the surreal experience, noting that the two sci-fi legends paid her no attention at all. "They completely ignored me," she laughed, recalling the odd encounter. Little did Shatner and Nimoy know, the woman sitting between them was about to become one of TV's most beloved mothers. Maureen McCormick's struggles behind the Marsha Brady persona. At just 14 years old, Maureen McCormick took on the role of Marsha Brady, the picture-perfect eldest daughter of the Brady Bunch. But behind the scenes, McCormick battled anxiety and deep insecurities that contrasted sharply with her character's flawless image. In her memoir, she opens up about the emotional toll of playing someone so different from herself. "As a teenager, I had no idea that few people are everything they present to the outside world," McCormick reflects. "Yet there I was, hiding the reality of my life behind the unreal perfection of Marsha Brady. No one suspected the fear that gnawed at me. These personal struggles didn't end when the show wrapped." After the series concluded, McCormick faced years of personal challenges, including substance abuse and severe depression. She recalls spending all-night binges at the Playboy Mansion and missing a crucial audition with Steven Spielberg for Raiders of the Lost Ark due to her addiction. Barry Williams' experimentation phase on set. Like many teens of the 1970s, Barry Williams, who portrayed Greg Brady, went through a phase of experimentation with recreational substances. One day, after indulging in some marijuana on his day off, Williams received a call from the studio about reshooting scenes for the Law and Disorder episode. Williams reported to set, but it quickly became clear that something was off. His awkward, stumbling movements across the driveway, coupled with a glazed look in his eyes and stilted delivery of his lines about Dad's new boat, raised immediate red flags. The producers reacted swiftly, rewriting parts of the script to reduce Greg's role in that episode. Reflecting on the experience, Williams shared on his blog, "I went through a stage of experimentation as a kid. I certainly never went to the set high again, but I don't like weed. It makes me feel dumb, paranoid, and hungry." Gene Hackman and the Mike Brady role he missed. Gene Hackman, now a legendary actor, was once considered for the role of Mike Brady on The Brady Bunch. However, producer Sherwood Schwartz recalled that Paramount refused to approve Hackman for an interview because his TVQ, an unofficial measure of an actor's familiarity with audiences, was too low. Despite Schwartz's interest in Hackman, they eventually cast Robert Reed as Mike Brady. Reed was already under contract with Paramount and had some star power from his role in the popular legal drama The Defenders. Ironically, the following year, Gene Hackman, with no TVQ at the time, starred in The French Connection, won the Academy Award for Best Actor, and quickly became one of Hollywood's biggest stars. Schwartz reflected on this decision, noting that Hackman's career soared after that, while Reed's role as Mike Brady remained his most prominent. The Jan Brady recast, Debbie Storm's missed opportunity. In the early stages of the Brady Bunch, creator Sherwood Schwartz initially cast brunette actress Debbie Storm as Jan Brady. However, Schwartz later decided to give the Brady girls a more unified look, choosing to make all three of them blonde. As a result, Storm's role as Jan was recast with Eve Plumb. Although she lost the part, Storm didn't fade into obscurity. She made a memorable guest appearance in the episode My Fair Opponent, where she played Molly Weber. Molly was an awkward classmate who undergoes a transformation into a beauty, giving fans a glimpse of what might have been if Storm had stayed in the Brady family. Cindy Brady's blonde hair. Susan Olsen, who portrayed the adorable Cindy Brady, was naturally blonde, but her hair wasn't quite the shade the producers were looking for. They had a very specific vision for the youngest Brady's golden locks, so they began bleaching Susan's hair regularly throughout the first season. However, the constant chemical treatments started to take a serious toll on her hair. By the time season 2 rolled around, the damage was hard to ignore. Her hair began falling out in large amounts, which raised serious concerns about her health. After much deliberation, the producers decided to stop the bleaching and let Susan's natural hair color shine through, bringing a more authentic look to Cindy Brady. The tragic fate of Tiger, the Brady Bunch dog. The disappearance of Tiger, the Brady family's beloved dog, has always sparked curiosity among fans. However, the real story behind Tiger's sudden exit is much more tragic than it is amusing. While filming the second season's Kinks episode, disaster struck. Tiger's trainer let him out for a bit of exercise, but in a heartbreaking moment, the dog was accidentally struck and killed by a passing car. With filming underway and the episode needing to be completed, the trainer quickly searched for a replacement, a dog that resembled the original Tiger. Unfortunately, the new dog couldn't match Tiger's temperament or training. After struggling to make the replacement work on set, producers made the tough decision to write Tiger out of the show entirely.
Tiger!
What's your favorite moment from the Brady Bunch? Let us know in the comments. Hair color played a key role in casting the Brady kids. When it came to casting the Brady kids, creator Sherwood Schwartz had a very specific plan in mind, and it all started with hair color. At the time, Schwartz hadn't yet finalized the look for the parents, so his approach was to cast a variety of child actors to match whatever the final parental pairings might be. His goal was to have 12 child actors in reserve: 3 blonde girls, 3 blonde boys, 3 brunette girls, and 3 dark-haired boys. The reasoning behind this was simple. Schwartz envisioned the parents having contrasting hair colors, so their children's hair color would likely mirror that distinction. According to Schwartz and Brady, Brady, the complete story of the Brady Bunch, as told by the father-son team who really know. As a consequence, to this day, there are 3 dark-haired girls and 3 blonde boys about 45 to 50 years old somewhere in the world who might have been the Brady Bunch kids. If they're reading the book, they might just be learning that they were part of a casting pool for the iconic show all those years ago. When it came to casting, Sherwood Schwartz's vision for the Brady kids included specific hair colors that would match the contrasting looks of the parents. Mike Lookinland, who was naturally strawberry blonde, was Schwartz's first choice to play Bobby, the youngest Brady son. However, when Robert Reed was cast as the father Mike Brady, Lookinland's strawberry blonde hair didn't quite fit the family dynamic. To make it work, Lookinland had to endure multiple hair dyeing sessions to achieve a darker shade that would appear more consistent under the studio lights. 6 kids shared one bathroom with no toilet. Fans of the Brady Bunch may have noticed something curious about the Jack and Jill bathroom shared by the Brady kids. It was notably missing a toilet. This oddity was due to television networks' strict rules during the 1960s and 1970s regarding the portrayal of toilets on screen. At the time, showing a full porcelain toilet bowl was considered taboo, especially for family-friendly shows. To avoid any awkward camera angles or potential controversy, the producers of the Brady Bunch made the decision to leave out the commode entirely from the kids' shared bathroom. While the tank portion of the toilet was acceptable, seen, for example, in the 1957 Leave It to Beaver episode Captain Jack, The absence of a toilet bowl was a small but interesting oversight that viewers have since come to recognize. This quirky choice became part of the show's charm, a testament to the creative workarounds producers had to implement to maintain a family-friendly atmosphere. The hidden Easter egg in Jan's Black Wig episode. In one unforgettable episode of The Brady Bunch, Jan's infamous black wig steals the show. But if you pay close attention during the party scene, you might spot a clever Easter egg. The scene takes place at the home of Jan's school friend, Lucy. The choice of the character's name was no accident. It was a fun nod to the actress who portrayed her, Pamela Ferdin. At the time, Ferdin was widely recognized for voicing the character of Lucy Van Pelt in several Peanuts animated specials, including a boy named Charlie Brown. Naming her character Lucy in the Brady Bunch was a playful inside joke, offering a subtle wink to fans familiar with Ferdin's iconic voice work.
What do you mean I can't?
Henderson wasn't around when filming began on the first 6 episodes. Florence Henderson, who would go on to become one of TV's most beloved matriarchs as Carol Brady, wasn't present when filming for the Brady Bunch began. At the time, her hair had been cropped short for her role in an off-Broadway revival of South Pacific, so she wore a wig during the first season. While she was finishing up filming Song of Norway in Denmark, she received the news that the pilot for the Brady Bunch had been sold. Henderson explained in a 2014 NPR interview, "And so they started the show without me. Incredibly, the show actually filmed the first 6 episodes without her, with a stand-in actress playing the role of Carol Brady." Once Henderson returned to the United States, she stepped into the role of Carol, bringing her warmth and charm to the beloved character that would soon become iconic. Which behind-the-scenes Brady Bunch secret surprised you the most? Small mistakes in the Brady Bunch that became legendary. During the era of the Brady Bunch, television hadn't yet popularized recording devices like VCRs or DVRs. Because of this, small errors were often overlooked in the rush to finish episodes on time. No one could have predicted that the show would still be loved and aired regularly over 40 years later, making those little mistakes an interesting part of its history. Some of these flubs were discovered by fans after multiple viewings, such as when the family leaves the house in a convertible but comes back from the same trip in a station wagon, or when Jan, who starts with her hair in a ponytail, suddenly has it loose during a scene where the kids are building a card house. There was even a charming mistake that wasn't in the script. Susan Olsen, Cindy, sticking her tongue out in a scene because she thought it was still a rehearsal. These moments, though seemingly errors, became part of the show's charm, making it feel more relatable and endearing to viewers. With modern technology, from digital playback to detailed analysis videos, today's audiences can spot and appreciate these small errors as part of the Brady Bunch legacy. Far from diminishing the show's value, these mistakes add to its authenticity and warmth, which is one of the reasons fans have stayed loyal to it for decades. Christopher Knight wasn't blessed with musical ability. While many of the Brady kids had impressive vocal talents, Barry Williams, Mike Lookinland, and Maureen McCormick being particularly skilled singers, and even Eve Plum and Susan Olsen holding their own, Christopher Knight was not quite as musically gifted. Knight himself has admitted that his singing abilities were far from stellar, and he recalls feeling embarrassed by his performances on the show. When interviewed by the Improper Bostonian, Knight didn't hesitate to call singing on the Brady Bunch his most traumatic experience. Due to his lack of vocal talent, Knight was often encouraged to lip-sync during the musical episodes. However, the producers found a way to incorporate his vocal struggles for comedic effect. In the Do-Re-Mi episode, Peter's changing voice became part of the storyline, and Greg used Peter's voice, cracking, to add humor to the song Time to Change. Unfortunately for Knight, his attempts to sing were far from impressive, and his lines in the song were actually dubbed by producer Howard Leeds. Reflecting on this experience, Knight remarked, "That whole episode where my voice was changing was them just pointing out that I couldn't sing. My first experience with depression was that week." Despite the humorous spin the show put on his vocal struggles, Knight's lack of musical prowess was one of the more memorable quirks of the Brady family. The inspiration behind the Brady Bunch. A statistic. Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of the Brady Bunch, knew exactly where the concept for the show originated. It all started with a simple statistic he read in a 1965 edition of the Los Angeles Times. The piece mentioned that 31% of all marriages that year involved people who had children from previous marriages. To Schwartz, this statistic signified a remarkable shift in societal norms. A third of all marriages now involved blended families. This revelation sparked an idea for a TV show, initially titled Yours and Mine, that would explore the complexities of such families. Schwartz shopped the script around to all 3 major networks at the time, but faced rejection each time. However, 3 years later, a film titled Yours, Mine, and Ours, starring Lucille Ball and Henry Fonda, was released. The movie, about a widow with 8 children marrying a man with 10, became a box office hit. This success piqued the interest of ABC, and suddenly, Schwartz's script was getting attention. The show was soon reworked and renamed The Brady Bunch, becoming a cultural phenomenon that would endure for generations. The show was never a huge hit. The Brady Bunch wasn't a major Nielsen success during its original run. Despite its charm and growing fan base, it never cracked the top 30 shows in terms of ratings. However, it did well enough to secure 5 seasons, which allowed Paramount to package the show for syndication. This turned out to be a key factor in its eventual success. The syndicated reruns were typically aired in the late afternoon, making the show more accessible to a younger audience who hadn't seen it during its original airings. This exposure led to an expanding fan base, and as time went on, more and more people discovered the Bradys. Ironically, while the show wasn't a huge hit while it was on the air, its popularity skyrocketed after it ended. Thanks to its continuous syndication, The Brady Bunch has become a beloved classic, and its fan base keeps growing with each new generation discovering the quirky, heartwarming family. Today, it remains a cultural touchstone and is enjoyed by viewers of all ages. There was some romance on the set. Behind the scenes of The Brady Bunch, there was some real-life romance brewing. According to Barry Williams in his memoir, Growing Up Brady, he and Maureen McCormick shared their first kiss while filming a 3-episode story arc in Hawaii during the show's 4th season. Their budding relationship was intense during that time, reaching its peak while filming the final episode of the season, A Room at the Top. In this episode, Greg and Marcia have a scene where they argue over who should get the attic room, and filming it took much longer than expected. The reason? The on-screen tension between Barry and Maureen translated to some off-screen chemistry, causing the director to repeatedly yell, "Cut," as the 2 actors grew too cozy in their positions. To solve this problem, director Lloyd Schwartz had a creative solution. He instructed both actors to make fists and place them between them on the bed, ensuring they kept that distance apart during the scene. In the book, Brady Schwartz explained that he was concerned about the young romance between Barry and Maureen. He believed on-set relationships, especially among teenagers, rarely worked out and often led to complications. If the pair were to have a breakup, how could they continue working together smoothly? To cool things down, Schwartz flattered Barry by appealing to his vanity, telling him that he was too young and attractive to tie himself down to just one girl. While the romance may have simmered down, it remains one of the memorable behind-the-scenes stories from the Brady set. The show attempted a backdoor pilot. In the final season of The Brady Bunch, the show made an ambitious attempt to launch a spin-off series with a backdoor pilot. In the episode titled Kelly's Kids, the Brady family took a back seat to introduce a new set of characters, the Kelly family, consisting of neighbors Ken and Kathy Kelly, played by Ken Barry and Brooke Bundy. The Kellys had adopted 3 boys from the local orphanage, all of whom had been close friends. The twist was that the boys were diverse. One was white, played by Mike Lookinland's real-life brother. One was African American, and one was Asian American. Sherwood Schwartz, the creator of the Brady Bunch, had hoped this introduction would lead to a spin-off series, especially since the networks were expanding primetime TV to start at 7:30 p.m. and were in need of family-friendly programming. Despite the positive intentions, Kelly's Kids was not picked up, and the pilot episode ended up being just a one-time experiment within the Brady Bunch. Though the series didn't take off, the attempt highlighted the era's growing interest in more inclusive and diverse representation on television. It also served as a reminder that the Brady family wasn't just limited to their own household. They were always looking out for their neighbors, too. Marcia really did take a football to the nose. In one of the Brady Bunch's most memorable and humorous moments, Marcia Brady really did take a football to the nose. The scene, from the episode The Subject Was Noses, often remembered for Marcia's iconic line, featured Greg tossing a football to Marcia, which results in a painful and dramatic injury. However, filming the scene wasn't as smooth as it seemed. According to Brady Bunch producer Lloyd Schwartz, Christopher Knight, who played Peter, struggled to hit his target when filming the football toss. With the pressure mounting to get the shot, Schwartz took matters into his own hands. Off-screen, he threw a perfect spiral and nailed Maureen McCormick, Marcia, right on the nose in one flawless take. The scene became a classic Brady Bunch moment, and Maureen McCormick's over-the-top reaction to the injury is still remembered fondly by fans. What makes it even more memorable is knowing that it was a perfectly executed shot from a producer, not an actor, making it a rare behind-the-scenes story of a TV classic. Please comment 1 to let me know you'll be watching this video until the end. Carol Brady was supposed to be a divorcee. When the Brady Bunch was created, the character of Carol Brady's past was somewhat shrouded in mystery, especially regarding her first marriage. While Mike Brady's background as a widower was made clear, Carol's pre-Brady marital history was left more ambiguous. Sherwood Schwartz, the show's creator, has mentioned in interviews that he originally intended for Carol to be a divorcee. This was hinted at by her maiden name, Tyler, and her married name, Martin, which were revealed in the pilot episode. However, during the time the Brady Bunch aired, divorce was still considered taboo for mainstream television, particularly for family-friendly shows. As a result, the details of Carol's first marriage and what happened to Mr. Martin were never explicitly addressed. This decision left fans puzzled for decades about the fate of Carol's first husband. In recent years, after being asked about it for nearly 50 years, Florence Henderson, who portrayed Carol Brady, began jokingly responding that she had killed him, adding a playful and humorous twist to the ongoing mystery. While it's likely all in good fun, it remains one of the more intriguing and unresolved aspects of the Brady Bunch lore. Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed these fascinating facts, check out more videos in this series for even more surprises. Don't forget to hit subscribe and share Who Remembers with fellow fans. Thanks for watching, and stay curious.